The Grand Council chamber on Nexus Prime had never witnessed such chaos. Representatives from 47 different species filled the crystalline amphitheater, their voices creating a cacophony that the universal translators struggled to process. At the center of the storm stood Ambassador David Park, a relatively junior human diplomat who had been expecting nothing more eventful than routine trade negotiations. Instead, he found himself at the epicenter of the most significant political upheaval in galactic history. "This is preposterous," roared Chancellor Vextar of the hegemonic empire, his insectoid mandibles clicking with agitation. "The Quintarch throne has been held by the 5 royal houses for 3 millennia. A human cannot simply—" "The law is clear," interrupted Princess Veltara of the ethereal courts, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance that made her species natural diplomats. Her gossamer wings shimmered with bioluminescent patterns as she spoke. "The Treaty of 5 Worlds states that in the event of the Great Convergence, the new ruler must be chosen by unanimous consent of all 5 royal princesses. We have made our choice." Standing beside her, Princess Zixandra of the Silicon Collective nodded, her crystalline features refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. "The selection process is complete. David Park of Earth has proven himself worthy through the trials of unity." David felt his throat go dry. The trials of unity had been a series of diplomatic challenges he'd thought were simply elaborate negotiation exercises. Over the past 6 months, he'd helped broker peace between the warring flame dancers and ice shapers of Pirion IV, mediated a resource dispute between the machine intelligences of Nexus Beta and the organic collectives of Verdant Prime, and somehow convinced the notoriously xenophobic Void Wraiths to participate in the first interdimensional cultural exchange in their species' history. He hadn't realized he was being tested for kingship. Princess Keela Voss of the warrior clans stepped forward, her 7-foot frame encased in bio-armor that pulsed with her heartbeat. The assembled delegates fell silent. The warrior clans had not spoken in council for over a century. This human demonstrated courage when facing the abyssal hive mind on Omega Station. He chose to save our people rather than preserve his own life. This is the mark of a true leader. The 4th princess, Nilith of the Deep Void, materialized from what had appeared to be empty space, her dark energy form coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. When she spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around her words. "In the spaces between dimensions, I have observed his choices when he believed no one was watching. He shows mercy to enemies, protects the weak, and seeks understanding rather than dominance. These qualities transcend species barriers." Finally, Princess Oriana of the Starborn stepped forward, her form shifting between solid matter and pure energy. "The cosmic flows have spoken. The galaxy stands at a crossroads between unity and fragmentation. Only one who belongs to no single world can lead all worlds toward harmony." David looked around the chamber at the faces or face analogues of beings who represented the most powerful civilizations in known space. Some showed curiosity, others outrage, and a few appeared genuinely intrigued by this unprecedented development. "Your Highnesses," he began, his voice somehow carrying clearly through the vast chamber, despite his nervousness. "I'm honored by your trust, but I have to ask, why me? There must be countless individuals more qualified than a mid-level human diplomat." Princess Veltara's laugh sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "That is precisely why, David Park. Every other candidate we considered was already too powerful, too invested in existing power structures. You have no empire to expand, no ancient grudges to settle, no species supremacy to maintain. The galaxy needs a leader who sees connections rather than divisions," added Princess Zixandra. "Your species is young enough to remember what it means to be vulnerable, yet mature enough to seek cooperation over conquest. Chancellor Vextar's protests grew louder. This violates every precedent. The Quintarch rules over 6 trillion beings across 14 galactic sectors. No human has ever been given the chance, Princess Kelavos interrupted, her warrior's instincts making even the Chancellor step back. Perhaps that has been our mistake. David felt the weight of history pressing down on him. What would be expected of me? I mean, theoretically speaking. Princess Nilith's form flickered between dimensions as she answered, "Unite the fractured alliances. Prevent the coming war between the Outer Rim colonies and the core worlds. Guide the galaxy through the transition as 3 more species achieve faster than light capability. And most importantly, prove that leadership based on wisdom rather than force can work on a galactic scale." "No pressure," David muttered, earning what might have been chuckles from several non-human throat analogues. Princess Oriana stepped closer, her stellar radiance warming the air around them. "You would not rule alone, David Park. The 5 princesses would serve as your advisors and partners in governance. Think of it not as ruling over us, but ruling with us." The chamber erupted in fresh arguments as various faction leaders realized the implications. A human king would fundamentally alter the balance of power that had existed for millennia. Some species would see it as an opportunity for fresh perspectives. Others would view it as a threat to their established positions. David closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of the colonial world where he'd grown up, where humans had barely figured out sustainable agriculture, let alone galactic politics. Then he thought of the abyssal hive mind victims he'd helped evacuate, the peace treaties he'd helped forge, the bridges he'd built between species that had been enemies for generations. When he opened his eyes, he found 5 pairs of alien eyes, each representing billions of their people, watching him with expressions he was beginning to recognize as hope. "I accept," he said simply. The chamber fell silent for a heartbeat, before erupting in what could only be described as controlled chaos. As delegates began the complex process of formal ratification, David found himself surrounded by the 5 princesses who had just made him the most unlikely ruler in galactic history. "Welcome to the most impossible job in the universe, King David," Princess Veltara said, with a smile that transcended species barriers. Looking out at the stars, visible through the chamber's transparent dome, David realized that sometimes the greatest adventures began not with a hero's journey, but with a diplomat's willingness to say yes when the galaxy asked for help.